welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. Welcome, and welcome all the new listeners. We're so excited to have you and new subscribers. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you are on the fence about subscribing, just jump off and hit that notification bell. Make it really easy for you.
Right? Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to just dive in. I'm going to tell a story. And
Story time.
It's a story and it's kind of crazy. And so for all of you listening or watching this on YouTube, have an open mind, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, as always. So I was watching, now this happened several weeks back, but I was watching this series on YouTube, and this guy was giving his NDE story. Now, he had a very brief encounter with the beyond. And so afterwards, that's when his experiences started, was after he came back and was healed from his accident and things of that nature. And he explains how he was at work, but he was like in his position, he would go to work and like all of the equipment and server room or whatever that he worked in, nobody went in there. Like you had to have like very specific access and all this stuff. And he said that the group that he worked with, or in the building that he worked, it was a very small group. And so everyone knew who each other was. And as he was in this building, this guy had walked in while he was working. And he at the time had gotten there at like some ungodly hour early in the morning or whatever. And so he was the only one there. And he said this guy walks in and asks him directions to something. And he was like, wait, what are you doing here? And like, who are you? And the guy says his name. And anyway, that's a very, fascinating story that he explains, because then like several months later, he's with his girlfriend, and like, again, there's this guy that was homeless that was standing outside, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to go give that guy some money. And he walks up to the guy and he was like, wow, he looks really familiar. Like he knew him, but he couldn't place like where he knew him from. And he gave him money, and the guy was like, hey, why don't you take a walk with me? And he says his name. And he was like, how did you know my name? And then he started explaining things about him and about his life and about things that are going on that nobody even knew, not even his girlfriend. And he was just like, I can't believe this is happening. But he had this deep resonance inside that he knew this person, and that he knew him not just in like your standard, like I've met you before kind of way, but like a deep knowing. And so I watched this, episode it was on a YouTube channel, and I was so fascinated by that. And I was like, wow, so I think this guy met one of his guides, and that's what he was saying. And so I had the question pop into my head, can your guides meet you in person? And I just asked that question to myself, right? And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, hey guides, if you could actually do that, can I meet one of you? Right? Here in the physical world, is that even possible? So those thoughts popped into my head during watching this. I went about the rest of my day, or the rest of the evening. I go and I'm doing my thing the next day, and I'm out and I'm running errands, and the traffic was insane. There was a lot of people out at the time. I was starving and hadn't had a chance to like get anything to eat yet. And so, and mind you, this is the next day. And so I'm like, okay, I want something healthy, but I need something quick because I've got all these things that I got to get to and do. And I saw the Chick-fil-A sign on the far right side of the road. And I actually passed the first driveway to the Chick-fil-A entrance. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't eat that right now. Like, that's not what you're targeting. But then as I was approaching the next driveway that would have been towards like the sandwich place that I should have gone to, really, I saw the line there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that right now. I'm just going to get something really quick from Chick-fil-A, because that line miraculously was shorter than normal.
That's not usual.
Which is not usual at all. And so I turned in, I got in line. There were about 3 cars in front of me. And then as I pulled in, all of a sudden, like, everybody wanted to go to this Chick-fil-A location. It like the line just grew exponentially. And so at this location, there are 2 lanes to pull into and get your order taken. I chose the right lane, but the left lane was moving rather quickly. And I was like, great, I chose poorly, right? And so now at that point, because I was waiting for a while, even though there was only 3 cars in front of me, I was waiting for a while, and I could tell that the young lady that was taking orders in those 3 cars ahead of me, she seemed very chatty and like, she was going kind of slow. And so I was like, oh great, like, and at that point I was like, I'm just gonna make, a call. I think I tried to call you, but you didn't answer, and I called Steven, my husband, and so he answered, and I've got him on speaker in my car. And so him and I are just chatting. He's like, what are you going to get? And I was like, I don't know. Do you want anything? Blah, blah, blah. Right. My mind's not anywhere near the previous day story that I had witnessed. Right. And so as I'm waiting, you've got all these very young, staff members of Chick-fil-A taking orders. And the car in front of me hadn't taken its order yet. And then this blonde kid comes out of nowhere. Okay. Comes out of nowhere. And he just kind of makes his way through all these cars towards me. And so I roll my window down. Okay. Keep in mind, Steven's still on speaker in my car. And so I roll my window down, and he just like leans in to the window, like super casual. And he's got this long blonde hair and these bright blue eyes that are just like ridiculously unforgettable, like piercing. And he was like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, wow, this guy is like super casual, right? Like just all up in my window and everything. He's like, so what are you interested in? And I was like, a Chick-fil-A sandwich. And he was like, awesome. Great choice. Would you like anything else with that? And I was like, pepper jack cheese on the sandwich? He's like, that's yummy. And I was like, and I'm starting to like chuckle, right? Because this guy is so entertaining, but he's got this presence, like when you or somebody else walks into the room and you just feel this like powerful presence from them. That's how he was. And I was like, but at the same time, I had this like, where do I know you from? Mind you, this dude looks like he's like in high school. And I'm like, I wouldn't know anybody in high school, So like, I was like, how do I know you? And he's like, okay, so what are we going to put your name down for? And that's how he says it to me. And I was like, huh, that's a weird way to say that, right? And I was like, you can just put it as Shy. He's like, that's such a great name. And I was like, uh-huh. Now, mind you, I'm starting to get paranoid in my head because my husband's listening to this conversation, and I don't want him to think that I'm flirting with somebody because he can't see what's going on or that this guy is super young or anything, right? So like, I'm like, this is so funny. And he was like, you know what? You're going to have an amazing day. And I was like, I'm okay. Thank you. And then as he's like leaning out to walk away, I see that his name tag says Brady, which is one of my main guide's names. And when he did that, I was like, what? And I was like, and then he doesn't go to the car behind me or the fact that he skipped the car in front of me. He just walks back into the building.
He was only there for you.
I was blown away. And so I'm sitting there telling Steven, I was like I'm getting goosebumps just like talking about it right now. And I was telling Steven in the car, I was like, dude, did you hear that? And he was like, yeah, girl, I heard that. And I was like, his name tag was Brady. And every visual I've ever had of Brady, or anytime I've gotten a reading and somebody else has told me what they've seen, how Brady presents himself, is that he has this very surfer guy appearance, right? And I can tell that like when I'm having conversations with Brady or whatever, I get that like, this like very like surfer type personality, and those are the images that I get, is that long, hair. I've seen him in my own dreams, especially the ones that are extremely vivid that I can remember, and I've seen him in the way he looks, and I was like, oh my God, I just met my guide in person. What were the odds of that? The day after I watched that video and asked that question.
Well, because you asked.
Right. So I found this very fascinating. that our guides do interact with us, and I've seen so many stories, like somebody felt, before they were crossing a street and they weren't paying attention and they felt this like pullback,
Mhm.
right? Like somebody pulled them back, and right then and there, like the car just like zooms by or something. And had that not happened, they would have been hit or whatever.
It just made me think of the other day we were driving John to his first PT appointment.
Yeah.
And it was like we left 20 minutes before the appointment for a 10-minute drive because I wanted to make sure that I had extra time to drive slow and not hit any potholes or, jostle him around because he just had surgery. And we were at a light waiting to turn left. And my light turned green and the cars across from me, they stopped. And as I'm turning left, which again, I'm taking it very slow because when you turn left onto the street, you have to go up a little hill. And so it can have that little dip effect and it, bounce you a little bit. And so I was taking that turn slow and just starting to go up that hill. And somebody starts coming down the street the opposing way and sees that there's people stopped. And instead of stopping, he ends up going around the stopped cars up onto the sidewalk and then narrowly misses them and ends up in the middle of the intersection, maybe a couple inches behind me, but almost T-boned me. It was like the slow motion.
Wow.
And it was so wild because I was sitting there and I was like, I can't go faster, but I need to go a little faster. And it was like my car just kind of like a few inches forward. It felt like I wasn't taking necessarily physical action, but it was like my car just like shifted out of the way. And this guy ends up right between me, my back end, and the guy that was
Wow.
behind me turning left also. We all narrowly avoided a car accident. But I mean, it's wild because like our guides can present themselves in so many different ways.
Yes.
And angels can too. We tend to think like it's one or the other, but they can be one and the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it takes human form all the time because sometimes guides want to experience this physical experience again. And same with angels. And sometimes we are like angelic ourselves
Yeah.
in the acts of service that we do for others. So whether or not somebody is always an angel, right, in this physical existence, maybe
Right.
not, but we may get like hints, like not hints, like it's almost like an angel puts a hand on our shoulder and just kind of directs us a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm going to call it divine intervention, right? Just to add a definition to something. But
Because we need words.
because we need words, and so how we communicate. But it is wild to me. I can't tell you, there's been moments in my life looking back, because especially after having that experience, I was like, when else have they been in my presence? Like, when else have they like intervened in some way? And I've done some wild things. So like there's been probably plenty of times where they're like, oop, that's not the right path. Let's just pivot.
Yeah. I have to tell you, like, we were talking yesterday and you were venting about some issues that you were dealing with and you were driving at the same time. And I didn't share this little part yesterday, but while you were driving, I got jolted. Like it was like a spasm. And I envisioned you having a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And I told you at the end of our conversation, I've been visualizing a protection bubble around you while you've been driving.
Aw, it's so sweet.
And I also didn't want to freak you out.
Well, yeah. Those words are nicer.
But that's an example of you taking on that angelic presence or that in that little action that I took of just being mindful and loving and caring about you moving through your situation.
Yeah. It was just like with that story that I told on, I think it was the previous episode, but where I went to go get my toes done.
Oh, yeah. 2 episodes ago. So I think like 103 with all the triangles.
Yeah. When I was there getting my toes done, the young lady like had looked up at me, just very clearly said something like, it's okay. It's completely okay to just be yourself and to just sit and relax. But the way she said it compared to the way she interacted with me the rest of the time, I was like, huh. And she, speaks a different language. Like her primary language is different than English. But right then and there, it was ridiculously clear. And I looked at her and I was just like, huh. And I just knew. And that's one of the things, it's like that knowing,
Well,
where
that's
you
like
just know you're receiving a message through another physical being from something else.
it's channeling. And, it may not be that everybody's always aware that they are receiving a channeled message.
Right.
So that's going back to this idea that we all have these abilities. It's just we may not be aware or know how to use them or connect with them.
It was earlier before we hit record, we do this. We will do a meditation, we'll play a song to allow us to or assist us to raise our vibration more. I'll ask my guides to be, present in the sense of delivering me messages that our audience needs to hear or imagery that will come into my mind.
I tell you what, it is so much easier to receive and so much more information with imagery.
Yeah.
I would really like to learn how to just communicate through
Through imagery.
thought imagery.
It's translating. It's knowing what the meaning is when you're receiving the imagery. For instance, and I'll tell this story. Before we hit record, we were listening to some meditation music. She played 3 different ones back to back, which one of them made me laugh and I couldn't stop laughing. So that was awesome
It's
because
literally just ohms.
it was just, it was just the way the guy was saying it, right? And it just tickled, and then right after that, the second one was more affirmation type, or maybe that was the third one. It was more affirmation type. And all of a sudden I was just getting the imagery.
I Am Loving Awareness by Ram Dass.
Okay, that's a good one. And as I was receiving the imagery, I had the knowing with the first couple of images that I was getting that they were for Carrie. And then I knew that all the following images were for our collective. So anyone that comes across this particular episode at whatever time they come across it. So
Can you explain why?
yes. So when I came out of the meditation, and we were back talking to one another, I had said I received several messages. The first one was for you. And then I said the first imagery that I got was of a ballerina doing this like really cool, like one arm in the air, one arm to the side with the leg kicked back and kind of spinning.
Like a jewelry box.
Like the jewelry box ballerina. And I was like, but for some reason that switched to the same exact positioning, but with an ice skating, or like somebody doing an ice skating move or whatever. And I was like, what does that mean to you? Because it was clearly for you. And that's what they were giving me.
A few minutes into this practice, I started visualizing actually dancing in my meditation. So I was actively moving, spinning. There was like a spin leap that I did in my visualization. And it was like I was dancing with or for the 4 elements.
That's so cool. And then my next image was the top of a mountain, like looking at the top of a mountain and watching the clouds go by that mountain. And I got this like sensation of stillness. Watch everything else flow by, but this one peak is in stillness. And then you said,
because I was visualizing that I was dancing while we were in like South or North Carolina, which we're going on a retreat soon. And there are mountains there. There are mountains in the background. And I was like in a hilltop field with these mountains behind me.
So fascinating. So, these are the kind of practices that you can really put into place. And you can do this with friends where you can send the imagery to one another, or set your intentions and focus on doing that. Because I didn't know she was doing that, right? I mean,
Well, I wasn't thinking about doing it. I just started doing it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, I didn't know that those were the thoughts that you were having, or that you were like, that
Yeah.
like we were receiving the same type of information. And so that first imagery that I received was my validation to give you guys the rest of the imagery that I received. So if it resonates with you, and please feel free to comment down below if it does, or if this has any meaning for you, because it was clear that even though I might not understand it, you might. Okay. So the next one I got was a snowflake. So however a snowflake appears for you, my knowing with the snowflake was I was paying attention to the glistening on all the portions of this snowflake. And it didn't necessarily represent like snow, but rather seeing a beauty within something cold. So seeing the beauty within something cold. So
I
however that.
also like when I think of snowflakes, I think about individuality and how like everybody is a little different.
Yeah. Oh, and I just heard like crystalline water. So how if somebody's maybe doing something with
Oh,
that?
so maybe something along the lines of like the Dr. Emoto's water experiments again,
Maybe.
like
Maybe.
with how we speak to ourselves and how that does affect the water molecules in our being,
Yeah.
and that water has memory.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or
Okay.
vibration, right? And how vibration can change how, those crystals look. Um and then I got a imagery of a tornado. But it wasn't something scary. I didn't feel any type of fear towards it. I felt like maybe somebody is a little focused on some chaos in their lives. Um,
Are you
so
sure that's not for us also?
I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, it could definitely be for us, but however, the image of like a tornado it feels for you. And this is the important part about when you're receiving the imagery, or when somebody's saying, hey, for you, like say like you go to like a psychic reading or whatever, and they're like, I got this image of this. What does that mean to you? It's what does that mean to you? Like, how are you when you hear or you see the symbolism of a tornado, or you see the symbolism of a snowflake? What's the first thought that comes into your head? And roll with that.
My first thought was the Wizard of Oz, and like being lifted up and out to gain different perspectives and insights.
Okay. That's not bad. Yeah. Roll with that.
Yeah.
The next image that I received was a color wheel. So for me, a color wheel symbolizes choice, right? The choice to choose between action, the light, the dark, because we are part of all of that. We experience all of that. We roll through a majority of these different aspects of this wheel of life, right? And we make a choice all the time. And so that color wheel is what I resonated as making decisions, and where I wanted to land in those decision making, or in that decision making.
So, another thought on colors is every color kind of transmits a mood. And so, amalgamating your decision making with the mood aspect, where do you want to be mentally and emotionally?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so this is like a really, really good example of how images feel and how they are interpreted differently from every person, or by every person, because we all have our own experiences with any image that you interact with. Your experience interacting with a rock could signify maybe from childhood when a rock got thrown at you, or for somebody else, it could be they have a really large boulder that they decorated with flowers in their backyard. And so for them, it means peace.
A fairy garden.
Right. Like, Do you see what I'm saying? Like it has like all these different meanings in the symbols that you receive. And so it's just kind of working through and kind of having a conversation with your guides and saying, to them or conversing with them that, hey, let's try to work together to understand better what these images that I get are for. And that takes time and it takes practice. It also takes a lot of trusting in your own knowledge.
And your own ability to receive.
Your own ability to receive, right? And practicing that communication with your guides is super key, because if it wasn't for the fact that I consistently practice with them, I would have a much harder time. And you guys have seen it, I still sometimes don't always understand what the heck they're telling me. And that's usually when Brady steps in and is like, okay, let me help you out for a second. Which I call on him to do. I always use him as kind of my translator with anyone else's guides that I'm listening to or like receiving messages from.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do that too. You can pick a guide and
pick a guide, any guide.
Pick a guide, any guide, and ask them to be your interpreter. Words.
Don't they just feel weird sometimes?
They do feel weird.
Isn't it so funny how you can get stuck on a word and you're like, there.
They are.
That looks weird.
And some people get really irritated about that. And I'm like, why does that trigger you so much?
Oh, I wasn't even talking about the different forms of it.
Okay.
I was just like, you pick one word and you're like, wait a minute. Soup. Did I spell that right? Like after you like write it, you're like, wait a minute, and stare at it for a minute. It just starts to look foreign.
Foreign. Even that word's weird to me. But yeah, so some other things that I received was I got this knowing that everything was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, and it was right then and there, because I realized when I heard that in my mind's eye and in my thoughts, I heard everything's going to be okay. And it was right then and there where I knew I should tell the story of meeting Brady today. And so it was fascinating to me because right when I felt that, I felt my shoulders drop. I remembered to lower the tongue from the roof of my mouth and to relax the jaw and just relax the eyes. And it's so often that we don't realize that we're so tense, right? Where our shoulders are up to our ears and, the tongue is just stuck to the roof of your mouth and your jaw is super clenched and maybe your eyes are just like a little squinted, right? I don't know if that's part of my getting older part, but anyway, and just to release all that tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I always connect that feeling of like, oh, I forgot that I'm loved and I'm cared for and that I am love and I am care and I am these things that I perceive are outside of me. And I can take that and I can bring that into this now moment and I can play with that and I can allow myself to relax and not feel the everyday life tensions at all points in time of my days or at all points in time of my life. And maybe the overarching message from my guides during that meditation for our collective and for myself and for Carrie is that we are those things that we seek to find. And when you bring that in, when you hold that within yourself,
when you see it within yourself,
right? When you see it within yourself, it opens your awareness to more possibilities, more creativity, more love and self-care and self-acceptance, less judgment to yourself. And so I hope that we get to invite you to take, while you're listening to this or while you're watching this, that you think about that for yourself or that you bring that into yourself. So yeah, fascinating.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Yeah, so we're going to hop on in to the collective card reading time, y'all. All right. So I didn't look at these cards. I shuffled them. As I was shuffling them, we had just came out of the meditation and I was asking for guidance for all of us The way that the cards are currently stacked, I said message 1, and that was the first card that came out. Message 2, second card, message 3. So that's how we're going to present them to you today.
Alrighty, so we are using the Moonology Oracle cards by Yasmin Boland. And the first card we're going to be looking at today is the new moon in Scorpio, which says, work through your fears.
Yes, that's amazing.
This makes me think of this little nugget drop that I received during our meditation today.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that, you know, I've said this before, that the only constant is change. That everything is constantly changing, whether it be like your hair color or, you know, you're constantly aging. Mother Earth is constantly moving. She's reforming her continents all the time.
Yeah.
We aren't here long enough to really experience that. But the only constant is change, which means that nothing is permanent. This life is all about experiencing the impermanence, which two things. One, being in the now and appreciating the now, because it will never be the same now moment.
That's correct.
And then two, if everything in life is impermanent, why would death be any different? And that one I know is going to like maybe cause pause in some people.
Right.
But I believe that we are more ourselves when we're not in this human experience.
Yeah.
And that in this life, we experience this idea of separation. But once this body is removed, then we go back to everything the great I am.
Yeah.
And see that connection. And so this idea of death, the only thing that's maybe truly dying is the physical body.
That's what I believe.
And so I'm just like saying death is a fear. And so that's what made me think through this is we're working through our fears. You go through them, you face them.
Well, then you're going to love the first sentence of this card. This card suggests a rebirth.
See, death is just a rebirth. That's literally what I was trying to get at.
Yes, I know. So as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, she's going to like this one. You've got multiple meanings for this card. Time to let go of a grudge you're holding. Move on from jealousy. Stop being obsessive. Could it be you're being paranoid? And then there was this last one that says make an investment. So that might be a message specific to somebody at this time. An investment doesn't always have to be just something monetary, right? It could be an investment in yourself.
Well, Scorpio opposes Taurus, and Taurus is all about money and finances and grounding and like stability and foundation. So I think that there's a little bit of that duality in that experience.
Interesting. Okay. So think of your situation as the phoenix that's rising from the ashes, as the birth, death, rebirth paradigm.
I mean, death and birth are just transitions. Life is full of transitions. And death is just another example of one.
I just find it fascinating that that's what you got during your meditation, and that's the first card we got. Just saying. Okay.
All right, card number 2. Ooh, that's pretty. This is the waxing crescent moon, and it says, having faith in your dreams. So this card, it looks like it's maybe dusk. So the sun is setting somewhere that we can't see, and we see a crescent moon in the evening sky above foliage that has like a purple hue. So again, it's like that shadow form of the foliage. Have faith in your dreams.
This is fantastic.
Hold on. I want to read into this, feel into this before you read the book. We've talked about in the past how daydreaming is an important aspect of manifestation. That, unless we're daydreaming about the future, are we really setting goals or know where we're moving toward? Do you have an outcome that you want? Do you want to experience something specific in this life? then how do you make that happen? You start with daydreaming.
Yeah.
And so trusting in, the dreams that you are choosing to create and how that is helping move you towards that manifestation of that dream.
That's right. And honestly, like just your initial factors of creativity is a thought.
Mm-hmm.
It is a dream that you want to do something, right? And so you're like, oh, I have this idea of building this really cool box. I don't know. I'm just making something up right now.
I was just going to say, don't dream within the box.
See what happens.
Don't dream with limitations. Dream outside of the limitations.
This is like a random thought that I had. I was like, I want to create a box.
I'm going to play with bubble wrap.
Oh my gosh. So don't give up. That's the first sentence in this book. Don't give up. The situation you're asking about is still taking shape. So if you were asking yourself this question, think about this. You're nowhere near the end of the story. Whatever is happening now is just a step along the way. Some bullet points on this is attuned to the moon. I am focused on what I want. And just because you can't see your dreams, it doesn't mean they're not manifesting. Don't look back. Stay focused on moving forward. Oh, my favorite. Be patient as events unfold.
That's your favorite?
Just
transmuting
I'm
your
trying.
feelings around the word patience.
This is what I'm working on because I don't want to receive any more of these things. So dig a little deeper to find more courage. So if that's something that you're thinking about right now, where, do I have the courage to take on this challenge, to create the thing that I want to create?
You need courage to work through your fears.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. I absolutely love that.
And, just to say, like, courage doesn't mean that you're lacking fear. Courage is going forward, doing the thing despite the fear.
Right. It really is.
Card number 3, new moon in Aries. It's time to take action. Oof. Aries. Oof. I've been kind of listening to some different astrology podcasts about the energies right now. And by the time this episode airs, some of those energies may be waning a little bit. But after Aries season, which is full of action, productivity, movement forward, when we're in Taurus season, it's time to appreciate the production and slow down a little bit. You see all the flowers and the fruits and veggies that you've planted. Now you start to appreciate the growth and the fruits of your labor.
I like that. Mm-hmm. I like that. And it's kind of interesting how sometimes these transitions...
Oh, I'm sorry. We're actually moving into Gemini season. That's right, because it's my birthday soon.
She's like, I knew that.
I think this will come out the day before my birthday.
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. Which is reminding, this is funny that I'm like, I was hearing in my head that I don't want to use the book for this particular card. Yeah. And I was having a hard time finding it. I was like, you know what? Putting down the book.
So I just want to look back at this. Like, do you see the theme here? Yeah. We are working through our fears, the things that have held us back or, have perceived to hold us back. We use the tool of dreaming and trusting that it's supporting us in our goals in manifesting, but then also at some point, you actually have to take some action towards the creation of what you want. Yeah. So you can hope and you can dream and you can visualize all day, but that's not going to bring it to you all the time.
Absolutely.
You absolutely have to make way for those things to enter into your life.
And we're not saying that there can't be divine intervention. Sure. Like we just, but I made a move. I made a decision. I made a choice, an instinction, to go into a particular line or to choose that restaurant, right? That was an action that I took that allowed me to have that divine intervention. Mm-hmm. So it is too often that I see some people discuss, manifestation is just to hope and pray on it, and then it will just magically show up at their front door. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen.
I mean, it's not Amazon, y'all.
Right.
That'd be cool. Can we just order our dreams on Amazon and deliver it to your door next day?
Amazon, go ahead and send
there
me a
Prime
couple
for
million.
that?
That'd be great. No big deal. New house? Why not? Amazon it. So, yeah. So, I mean, we have those moments. Are you gonna look now?
I'm curious. But
You are
you
curious?
you
Okay.
talk to me about this one.
So, for me, I see exactly what you were saying, Carrie. I see the working through the fears. I see that a lot of times we hold ourselves back from our dreams because we have so much fear around even having that success towards that dream in the first place. And that's something to maybe work through, right? There's a lot of things that I had to work through before I could be anywhere near where I'm at in my life right now.
We had to work through a lot of like insecurities to even
Launch
start
this podcast.
recording like on video.
Right. But you take one step forward. We took one step forward. We're like, okay, just hit record. Right. And then we took the next step, and then we took the next step, and then we took the next step, and it's just built from there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. What you got?
The flame is lit. A wonderful new start beckons, and you are on the right track. Take this card as a big yes from the universe. This is the time to really tune into your dreams.
No way.
Yep. You may still have a long way to go, but you are on your way. Determination, self-assertion, and bravery are called for, but the hot fire of Aries is driving you towards success in whatever endeavor you're asking about.
There's a lot between all of these cards. They each mention that you're on the right path. Whether you know it or not, whether you see it in your physical world or not, you're on the right path. And there's too often that I see this in different, I'm currently fascinated with NDE stories right now. So if I bring that up, that's why. But there's too often that's one of the things that I see in those NDE stories is that people talk about, wow, I had no idea that everything that I was saying, doing, and thinking had the impact that it was having, and that no matter what, in every point in time in my interaction of being a human, I am learning something new. I am growing, and I'm gaining knowledge of all these different aspects.
Even if you just say something in jest, like negative about yourself,
Right.
it's your body takes that, and it's not like the body just lets that go if you're like, I was just joking. Like, no. Be kind to yourself and to others.
Absolutely.
I believe in the power of kindness.
That was the song we started off with. Not sure if that's going to make it in the episode.
Maybe a blooper.
Maybe, just maybe a blooper. Just saying. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, you guys, fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope you receive something from any of the messages that we got that were for y'all. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you are notified of any of our new content that we're putting out there for you guys. And of course, we do have social media at Love Always Self on TikTok, Instagram, so you can follow us over there.
One final shout out to Love Always Self podcast. Happy birthday, Love Always Self.
Oh my God. I completely forgot.
We just finished our second year, now going into our third, and we are so grateful to be where we're at here today with you.
Happy birthday to us. And you when this episode comes out.
Oh, yeah, that too.
We have a website. If you want to, or if you're fascinated or you feel called to the cards that we use during our collective card readings, all of them are on our Amazon shop on our website. Yes, we get a little kickback for that, and that only assists our channel. So thank you very much for utilizing those links.
We're going to dance on out of here.
We are.
Hope you have a wonderful day as well. And don't forget to love first.
Love last.
And love always. Bye, y'all. Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
Love last
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.